this fifth workshop on the Bible, I speak about the letters of St. Paul, and so in this video I'll try to capture some of that presentation. We know that St. Paul's letters are in the New Testament. There are 27 books in the New Testament, and there are 14 letters that are traditionally ascribed to St. Paul, though only 13 of them actually have Paul's name on them. The Hebrews, is an exception. Those letters are arranged from the longest to the shortest, from the letter to the Romans to the letter to Philemon. And those letters are written then to communities or centers like Rome or Corinth or Ephesus, and also to individuals at the end, Timothy and Titus, Philemon. Those letters, they follow a structure, and that can be helpful for us to know that, to interpret them and to know what we're reading, similar to our own style of letter writing in our own contemporary world. You know that they have a structure with the address, the sender's address at the top, and a salutation, dear Mr. and Mrs. so-and-so. And then there's the body of the letter, there's a final conclusion. Sincerely, Father John Kohler. And sometimes there's a note at the end, P.S., call my cell phone. St. Paul follows a model of writing letters in the ancient world, which is slightly different, but begins with a greeting and then a word of thanksgiving or a blessing. And then there's the body of the letter, and then there's the final greeting. And sometimes at the end of the letter, St. Paul will write something. He'll write, see with what large letters I'm writing this letter in my own hand. These ancient letters, it seems, were often written by a scribe or a professional writer. Perhaps Paul would dictate the letters and the writer would write them down very effectively, the professional. But at the end of the letter, Paul would write a note with his own hand, just to give a very personal touch, a greeting to the people he sent the letters to. A real turning point in Paul's life is his encounter with the risen Lord, and we read about that in the Acts of the Apostles, especially in chapter 9. Paul was on the road to Damascus, and Paul at this time was actively persecuted Christians. Himself a practicing Jew, a very devout and sincere Jew, he saw these Christian disciples as a threat to Judaism. On this road to Damascus, though Paul encounters the risen Lord, he sees a light, a bright light, and hears the voice, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? St. Paul, he asks, who are you, Lord? Who are you, sir? The voice replies, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. This must have led to a transformation in Paul's understanding of God, understanding of who he is. In Paul's letter to the Galatians, he writes that after he encountered the risen Lord, he went away to Arabia for 3 years. Imagine in these 3 years, Paul was processing his life and how through faith, believers are joined to Jesus. They become members of his body. In Paul's letter to the Galatians, he challenges the churches of Galatia, because they have adopted other beliefs into the gospel. There have been leaders who have been saying that Christians need to follow all the traditional rules and regulations of Judaism. Paul's angry and upset because this belittles the fact that in Jesus we have a new relationship to God. In Jesus, God has done something new. And in this letter, Paul even describes our relationship to God as adoption, being then sons and daughters of God. In Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, Paul also draws on this beautiful image of the body of Christ. The letter is quite long. It includes the familiar greeting and thanksgiving. And in the body, though, Paul includes a number of points for the church in this city of Corinth, which is in the south of Greece, a great center of trade and commerce, also a place of pagan worship, a place of even cultic prostitution. In this letter, Paul addresses the problems of divisions in the community, also prostitution, the issue of marriage and virginity, addresses issues of the Mass, of liturgy, addresses issues of the belief in the resurrection. Paul also describes our relationship to Jesus as being members of one body. Just as our bodies have many members, the hands, the feet, eyes, the ears, and we need all of them, so too are we all many members of Christ's body, and Jesus needs us all.